New evidence may be mounting in the allegations of bribery with President Biden. We're going to break it all down and take a look at how a prosecution could advance. Plus, with cities across the country shouldering the burden of the border crisis, does President Biden's new Border Patrol chief have a chance of getting anything done? And the LA Dodgers honoring a group accused of anti-Catholic bigotry. And it's safe to say this went down about as well as Anthony Fauci's first pitch. We'll also be speaking with Congressman Andy Biggs coming up later in the hour. But first,
the foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot.
Senator Chuck Grassley on the alleged Burisma executive paying Joe Biden and his son Hunter $10 million in a bribery scheme and may have recorded those conversations. So what does it mean for the leader of the free world? I want to bring back in my special guest, the Lawfare Project Senior Counsel Gerard Filitti. Gerard, we've been talking about this now. You're starting to see a lot more smoke. I'm not saying that there's fire there yet, but there's a lot more smoke. We know that the Department of Justice had that FBI informant, paid FBI informant, got a report now 5 years ago. This was advanced to the U.S. attorney in the state of Delaware, and then crickets. So one of the things a lot of people are asking is, with the Biden Department of Justice, if the House Oversight Committee continues to receive evidence, they're getting more and more evidence, and it looks like a prosecution should advance. How does that actually happen?
Well, the sad thing is it doesn't. Ultimately, these are federal charges that need to be pursued by the DOJ in federal court. You could try to have a local prosecutor do what Alvin Bragg did in New York City and file local or state charges, which are essentially under federal law. But just as in New York City, those won't go anywhere against Trump, they're not likely to go anywhere against Biden in Delaware. So you have to keep pressure on the government, on the FBI to investigate and the DOJ to prosecute. Ultimately, Congress has the power of the purse. They need to continue their investigations and push the DOJ to pursue the proper course of action. And that may be done through more hearings, that may be done through Ways and Means, that may be done through oversight, that may be done through funding, cutting funding until the DOJ actually does what it's supposed to.
Gerard, explain that a little bit more to us for our audience. Why can't an attorney general or a local prosecutor, at the request of the attorney general of a state, for instance, advance these types of charges?
Well, in Biden's case, you have to look at when the conduct occurred, and he was at that point vice president. Mm-hmm. That was something that took place in Washington, D.C., where he was in office. He may have been residing in Delaware, but the conduct did not take place there. So a prosecution, you're looking at where the person resided, where the alleged criminal conduct took place. And when that's not happening within the state of Delaware, it's hard to have an attorney general actually open an investigation and pursue charges. More than that, these are federal charges. You don't have similar state analogs. Mm-hmm. Bribery is illegal everywhere, but bribery in the context of taking foreign money for, pay for play, essentially, mm-hmm. That's not a state charge unless the play took place in Delaware.
But if there were evidence that some of these conversations were had at his residence in Delaware, because he did maintain a residence in Delaware, if there was a connection to the state, does that make it easier?
That gives the state a reason to investigate. That gives the state a reason to try to pursue charges. Ultimately, if Biden is indicted in Delaware, his first motion will be to move this to a federal court and to get a federal prosecution, because these are not charges that are normally brought by a state attorney general.
Right.
That's the same issue we're seeing with Trump in New York.
Let's bring in a former Indiana Attorney General and Project 21 member, Curtis Hill. Curtis, we're having a discussion here about how, if there is more evidence that continues to come out, whether it's through the tax returns, whether it's the audio tapes, that shows that there's more than just smoke here when it comes to this pay-to-play scheme that is alleged to have yielded some $5 to $10 million for the Biden family. Is there a way to advance this when the DOJ looks like it's been sitting on it for 5 years?
Well, advance this is an interesting question. How about just start an investigation? Just get it going. It's amazing how There's an interest in a $130,000 non-disclosure agreement that's all over the place, but a $5 million bribery scheme involving the sitting United States president gets ignored. And to the question of states' engagement, you would have to find some nexus to the state, some action that occurred in the state. But the first step is getting information before the American public through transparency. We need to understand, is there sufficient information to launch an investigation? And hey, if there's not credible information or credible evidence, let us know that. But at this point in time, everybody's certainly imagining the worst, and the best thing that the Department of Justice could do is provide us with information to let us understand, is there something here to investigate?
Do you think, Curtis, that the FBI's report, the informant's report, should be made public, and any of this other information, whether it's from the tax returns or any of the bank documents, should be made public precisely for that reason? Because this may not necessarily see the inside of a courtroom unless you do that.
Enough of the information should be made public so that we can understand the heart of the matter. I'm always concerned about trying a case in the public, as it were. So I certainly support the idea of holding back key information that would spoil a prosecution or its credibility. But in the instance of transparency, it's imperative that the Department of Justice provide sufficient information to let the American public understand, is there something here? Sufficient information to let us know that this is a credible investigation or credible evidence or incredible evidence. As it stands now, we're just speculating and having our imaginations go wild. And with what we're hearing, it certainly sounds like an investigation is absolutely necessary.
It seems that they're in talks with one of Hunter Biden's business associates to provide congressional testimony about this exchange. But there's been a lot of conjecture about the Burisma executive and where he is, what happened to him, and the FBI informant. Are you concerned about the safety of these individuals and whether or not these individuals are whether or not they're going to be able to be accessed, these individuals, if this is going to continue?
Well, there's no way of knowing that because we don't have sufficient information before us to understand what's going on. We're hearing speculative information. There was some thought or some suggestion by one who testified that someone's life would be in danger. Certainly that should be or could be a concern, but we just don't have enough information. We need to understand if there's some audio tapes that are available, if they're credible. This needs to go into an investigation mode, and the media needs to do its job of putting pressure on the Department of Justice to release the information that's necessary for us to understand what's coming in a further investigation.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear, Gerard, that Congress needs to do more than just talk about this. They need to start coming forward with more appropriately redacted, but more detailed physical evidence that they can show the public. 15 seconds. I'll give you the last word.
We need hearings that actually bring these documents to the public attention, but also to address violations of Foreign Agency Registration Act and other things that the Biden family seems to have been engaged in. The more publicity on it, the more we can hope that the Justice Department would finally take this seriously. All
right, Curtis T. Hill, former Indiana Attorney General, and Gerard, please stick around. Thank you so much. All right, coming up, illegal immigrants are pouring into the country. Has the Biden administration stepped up efforts to stop it? The president just appointed a new Border Patrol chief.